Hi, I'm Raquel, a truth seeker with a deep curiosity who lives to question overshared beliefs.
And I'm Christina, an interdisciplinary artist who believes in elevating undershared stories.
And we've saved you a seat at the Bombshell Brunches table.
Join us, a community who knows they were put here for more.
We chat with awe-inspiring people who live to make the world a better place in their own way, big or small.
We've got book club and product reviews and break down which tools and tactics we're using in life to help us thrive.
And let's be honest, sometimes just survive.
We'll spill the tea, set up success stories,
and leave you bite-sized takeaways that you can use to build the world you want to see.
So, today we have the great fortune of recording from Vancouver, BC, also known as the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Squamish, Stolo, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. We honor their long history of caring for the land we currently work, play, and reside on, and aim to uphold and uplift the voice and values of our host nation. A quick note on why we do land acknowledgements. Land acknowledgements have been an Indigenous tradition dating back centuries as a way to show respect for the land we are on. They give an opportunity to reflect on the impacts of colonialism, reminding us to be accountable to the Indigenous peoples and to thank those who still live on and care for our land. The land, sorry.
These lands.
And today we have Amrita on with us, the creator of Groundwork Productivity Systems. Amrita has introduced ease and flow across industries from startups to enterprise, technology, health and wellness, music, social justice, creative agencies, and more since 2010. Through training and coaching, she helps expand the way we think about work, life, and balance. And I feel like we all need this. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. So thrilled to be talking about what I'm passionate about. Thank you for the opportunity.
We have to shout out Harpo as well.
Yes.
Because Harpo introduced us.
Yes.
And if you go, for all of our hardcore Bombshell fans, Harpo was one of our first guests, really. And
what, first season?
Well, I think she might have been first season,
Really?
yeah. So shout out to Harpo, who has
Amazing.
a podcast called Brown Girl Guilt, and is making moves as always. And Amrita and I spent, we invested a good, hour and a half, 2 hours over coffee.
We didn't really want to stop talking.
We didn't want to stop talking. I was really upset that my plumber was coming to fix something very important, but I didn't want to leave. And so the natural progression was just to come and ask you to share your gloriousness with everyone next time I saw you.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. And I'm so honored.
So we like to talk about an origin story, and I just fell in love with yours, and you're so succinct about it. So I'm just going to ask it straight up. Why is it that you do what you do?
Right. So, I mean, I like to say and just be clear that I was raised in what I call survival mode. I think we can all relate to that in some form. I think nobody really escapes some form of experiencing challenges and trials and tribulations in life. But some of us experience them to a greater degree than others. And for me, mixed race kid, growing up on the outskirts of Montreal, but sort of always skirting the poverty line and never really knowing if the rent was going to be paid or, and it was always, I actually was just, I'm writing the book for Groundwork right now, and I was just writing a passage about remembering what it was like to have to ask my dad for money to go to school, like to go on a school trip. And the anxiety that came with asking him, because I was so fearful of the pain it was going to cause him and the stress and the strain it was going to cause him. So watching my father try his best, immigrant from Punjab, in the Punjabi community, there are a couple of things that are really important to achieve. One of them is money, and the other is social status. And when he couldn't achieve those things over and over again, as he tried to kind of make things work for himself in 1980s, Montreal, and failed, he just fell into deeper and deeper levels of depression. And so we were in survival mode, and I watched my father be in pain as a result of that. And of course, I got my gifts as a result of that as well. I got really good at certain things to try and alleviate the pain and the suffering that I saw around me. And got really good at, taking care of everyone and being on top of everything. And eldest of 3 kids, but actually 5 with cousins. And just, learn to produce in a very specific way, which is where the journey for me comes from, of how do we produce in the world without perpetuating survival mode. Yeah.
I love that. How do we produce in the world without perpetuating survival mode? And so, okay, which is an incredible, and I really want to highlight, when we talk about people that are either marginalized, underrepresented, when we're elevating, deserving stories, a lot of times we don't speak about invisible barriers.
Yeah.
And these systems and resources that you've created, they as a mixed race kid too,
yes.
We talk a lot about transcending culture and finding things that are universal themes.
Yes.
As a way to, for myself anyway, to feel like I belong.
Yes. I can relate. Yes.
Yeah. So I want to know, at what point did you realize, so you set up Groundwork, and I want you to give us a summary of what is Groundwork.
Yes.
And why is it that you decided that other people needed it?
Yeah. I mean, it was very apparent to me at a young age. So first of all, I'm a college dropout, and at about 20, realizing that academics was not for me, I started my own entrepreneurial journey, and I got lucky and ended up in Silicon Valley working on a tech startup.
Oh, weren't you in Silicon Valley at some point?
I did a little bit.
Did you? Okay, so you'll know what I'm about to say, which is when I was there in what's supposed to be the pinnacle of innovation and creativity, I was blown away by the level of depression and anxiety I saw around me. Like I was like, oh, everybody's in survival mode. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it was supposed to be the of creativity, and it's all supposed to be cool and joyful, and things are happening and people are up to stuff. But yet I just saw people drowning in these kind of cycles so I describe survival mode as the vicious cycles that perpetuate our overwhelm, anxiety, and worry. And that plays out in several ways, but it's this sort of state. I mean, a lot of people talk about it as fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I don't talk a lot about those particular responses in my work, but it is a nice way to identify with it and to understand it very quickly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I saw this kind of survival mode all around me, and I saw it in my own family, and then I saw it in the business world and in the creativity aspect of. I saw it in my friends who were artists, and, I saw it in the entrepreneurs that were trying to get things done and do cool things and execute on amazing ideas. And yet they were just crippled with this kind of underlying strain and tension. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so you decided that you were going to build a framework that was it exactly like what you used for yourself, or how did you figure out how to scale that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Wait, First, hold on.
Yeah.
Am I getting ahead of myself?
You're jumping. Did you burn out?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say that I was like, it's not that I like burnt out per se, but because I was raised in this survival state, it was like it's in my DNA. Like the capacity to push myself beyond exhaustion was something I learned at 12 years old.
Just keep it going.
Yeah.
It's like keep the balls in the air. Yeah. Whatever you have to do, just keep it going.
Yeah, and do more, because if you do more, then you'll finally feel okay. Mm-hmm. Someday, at some point, when you get another thing done, or in this, in the case, the way that I talk about it now, it's like when you get 10 more emails dealt with, and you get, that one project, when that's done, or when...
It's a trap.
Yeah, right? It's trap.
Not real.
Yes, exactly. So dispelling that illusion for myself was part of my own journey of going, the answer to feeling okay is never going to be found in doing more and in pushing harder. Mm-hmm. And then, in the world of productivity, it's the degrees are push harder and then numb out to get relief, right? And then you're just caught between the two, constantly waffling between those two states. So I wanted out. That's basically what I was like, I need out of this.
Yeah.
I want to get things done. I have really cool ideas, but I don't want to do it like that.
Yeah. I mean, both Raquel and I have gone through this, and I think so many people that we have, a lot of our fire friends, the people that we call those who are running alongside us, who are really pushing to make transformative change happen, both within themselves and for others.
Yes.
It can be exactly that. The answer to being okay is not necessarily to do more, but it's really hard to undo.
It's so
the
hardwired.
Feeling of, but if I rest, I'm so behind. Like, I don't know how to rewire my brain to stop telling myself that.
Yeah, and the guilt and all of it that comes with it.
Yeah.
How do you get somebody out of that place? Because I know you have a framework
Yes.
that actually helps people handle this load
Yes.
of work and productivity and how to be producing while still having a life.
Yeah.
Being able to breathe. But like, in order to move into a system like that, I imagine that can be very overwhelming as it is. Like, if you're just trying to juggle and just trying to keep balls in the air, and someone says like, oh, just stop, let them fall, and then we'll rearrange them like this, like that sounds crazy to someone who's in that spot. They're like, let them drop.
Yeah.
So how do you work with people to get them out of that mindset?
Yeah, that's a really important question, because the last thing you'd want to do to someone who's overwhelmed is give them added burdens, right? Like, you wouldn't want to get them to set like new goals. Like, it's like, no, they don't need new goals, right? They don't need another app trying to tell them like, okay, this technology is going to help you get more done quicker. Like, I'm not trying to give people AI to rejig their calendars automatically. What I'm trying to do is give them a mindset and a set of principles that becomes a way of life that they then apply to everything in their life. So it becomes the lens through which you see things. And there's something deeply spiritual about that, which is why I think people gravitate to the work that I teach, and it does feel easeful even if it's confronting, because definitely part of the framework does force you to have to get the totality of what you're dealing with in front of you, versus having stuff in the background of life weighing you down. So this entire system is designed for where are the barriers and the cracks to your peace of mind. So that does mean confronting everything that you think you're going to do, all the things that you should be doing and haven't, just all of life, getting it in front of you so that you can actually consciously bring a level of consciousness to it, versus sort of thrashing around in life and hoping to get relief.
That wasn't a telling laugh.
I was like, but that's all I do is thrash around. We were just talking before we started this podcast. We were talking with Chris, who's at TofuBot, this studio, about the concept of too much thrashing around, and Raquel having to give me a thing called a rainbow bucket so that I wouldn't panic when she had new ideas. Because, we look around and the studio's amazing, and Raquel's like, we should have events. And I just immediately go into like, no. And so now she's learned to give me a thing called the rainbow bucket, because she's, instead of saying calm down, which never calms anybody down, calm down and don't panic does not work.
No.
It's well, let's just put it in the rainbow bucket for later, and we can talk about it later when you're not in panic mode.
Yeah, I absolutely love the idea of a rainbow bucket. We have something similar too in the framework.
Oh,
so
you do?
when you said that, I was like, oh, yeah. Anyways, absolutely
What's it called?
necessary. Well, it's called, in our case, it's called the monthly review, but we view it as parked items. Oh. And part of the muscle of the system, so there's two parts to the work that I teach, and I think we'll probably go through the more, I'd say the more important aspect, but the entire framework addresses, are you established at the level of being, which is the vertical plane of life, before you go into action at the doing plane of life, which is the horizontal plane. And we address both those things. So we have the stress response framework for the being.
Sorry, our faces were like, are we?
I can see why you two are really good friends.
Are we?
That was so well timed.
Yeah.
Not at all intentional.
Unscripted.
I love it.
Please continue.
Well, no, and then just that the productivity framework deals with the doing level, which we call the Groundwork productivity system. But in that system, part of the muscle that we're building and the new habit that we're building is the capacity to take great ideas and go, no, I'm not doing that right now. That is so key for peace of mind. If you do not have that muscle built, especially as a creative person or an entrepreneur, you are screwed pretty much, because it's not going to be fun.
No.
The ideas coming in are just going to be overwhelming, right?
Yeah. yeah. I just really brought you on to have my free groundwork lesson. That's what and we've talked about this so much, where Raquel, and this is such a great, I'm so excited to get into like how that works for you, or with like from you to the rest of us, everyday human beings. But Raquel and I have very different ways of thinking.
Yes.
So Raquel's way of thinking, sometimes, not all the time, is to throw so many ideas in the world, and let them all live out there in this, like, I don't know, I would call it a constellation of doom, but that's just me. Whereas I really like to have like chunk modular things where I'm like, we're doing this now and don't talk to me about the other thing. We're doing this now and don't talk to me about that other thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, maybe that's the answer that we need to be thinking about a little bit more, is conceptualizing, okay, well, where are we thinking right now? Is it the vertical versus that horizontal plane?
Yes.
So that we can understand what comes next and have an effective prioritization tool.
Yes.
To that effect, tell us what does groundwork look like? How does it work?
Yes. So maybe I'll just start by describing what it addresses and who it's for. So basically, it's mainly for high performers, and it's for everyone, don't get me wrong, but the people who benefit from it the most are people who really want to perform. They have something at stake. They want to get things done. They want to produce. But high performers tend to be really good at getting things done. But as a result of being so good at that, they tend to really not feel great while they're doing it, because they're operating in high levels of stress.
Yes. Call it potato mode.
Potato mode? What's potato mode?
It's where she's a baked potato.
I become all kinds of different types of potatoes.
A russet potato.
Yeah.
So are you just like, you're just done?
Well, potatoes are really robust. But, and they plod along like they're like a good vegetable.
I've actually never heard the origin story of the potatoes.
Well, it came from
I'm
the
excited
idea
about this.
It's a whole podcast episode in itself. But it came from the idea of me, when people say, like, I'm just being a couch potato.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? Sometimes I'm a couch potato, but sometimes I'm just a little fry trying to make it in a big world. Sometimes I'm feeling overboiled and a little bit mashed. But I'm always tasty, robust, and continuing on in life. Like,
Very
I'm
good.
always doing things.
Very good.
But sometimes when we get to festivals or we get into work where, Raquel and I did a live stream with StoryHive, and we were working 18 hours a day.
Right. You're going hard.
We're going hard, and we know that we're going to be okay. We're still going to be tasty, but we're in potato mode.
And there was a lot of underlying stuff with that too, because there was other life emotional things, which I was so curious if groundwork addresses anything like that too, because we have our aura rings that we've been like testing for a later podcast, and that's one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is like this readiness score, which with the aura ring you use for physical activity, or you could use it for like, do I have a really good mindset to do deep work today or something like that. But I think about it in terms of what's your capacity in work and life right now?
Yes.
Where do you need help?
Yeah. And that is why you have to address the internal aspect, the state from which you're doing things, which is, so back to the high performers, when they're in that stress state, they do get things done from that state. But I promise you, those people want peace of mind. And in fact, if they had peace of mind, my theory is, and this is what I see with my clients and have seen with hundreds of people now, is that when you're cultivating peace of mind and you're actually established at the level of being, and you're not coming from this tension-based state constantly, you actually perform way better. You have increased performance, and the peace of mind gives you the better quality of life. It gives you the clarity you need to operate, the focus that you want so desperately in a really hyperactive, hyper-intense world where we have so much coming at us. if peace of mind is not the priority for someone who wants to perform, they're not going to enjoy the ride. They're just not.
Peace of mind as a priority is something that I think culturally, for me, coming from Hong Kong, was not something you aspired to.
You're
No.
like, what is that?
Yeah.
Same for me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of Asian cultures and many cultures where you really celebrate and glorify hard work.
Yeah.
Because that was ingrained
Yeah.
into that allows you to deserve rest.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what I'd love to know about the Groundwork framework is how long does that, I mean, everyone's different, but how do you help people to undo that? Like, where do you start asking people to ask themselves questions?
Yeah, well, we always start by looking at the state piece. So the first part of the work is looking at how you respond to challenging, difficult situations in life. And we map what we call the survival pattern. And the survival pattern gets mapped from the 5 spheres of life. So we look at the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, behavioral spheres of life. And we actually map the blueprint that you have that travels with you no matter what challenge you're experiencing, how you're responding in that situation. And that's a self-awareness piece, and there's a mental cognitive piece there that's required to shift the awareness. But we don't stop there, because I really do believe that self-awareness has to be embodied to actually see full change. And there's only so far intellectualizing your understanding of that challenge is going to get you. And so what we do is we teach people to drop directly into the source of why you're responding and you're in that reactivity, which is usually some form of internal pain. So Mr. Rogers would call it hurt. He would talk to the kids and he'd say, you're just hurt inside, or you're just sad.
This is our second Mr. Rogers.
No way!
Reference. Yeah.
Today.
Second
Oh, I'd have today? Oh my
Go and
goodness.
watch that movie.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it. I can't
He's
see it.
brilliant. Well, do you obviously know about his ethos a little
don't
bit?
know.
Oh, I highly recommend it. He's an incredible human being. Was an incredible human being. Still feels very much alive in my world. But yeah, just that we all experience a kind of suffering. We don't escape it. It's part of the human experience. And in fact, Harvard Business Review published an article a couple of years ago. I was so excited about it. I'm like, finally, people are talking about this, which is the greatest leaders that they see are the leaders who are in touch with their experience of emotional mental pain. So when you're integrated with your experience of what's driving your response and reactivity to stress and challenges, now all of a sudden you actually have a shot at freeing yourself from it. Because when we're in touch with it, it doesn't need to drive the action anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And it changes everything. So, I talk about it as going from a resistance-based state, so a tension-based state. It's myopic in nature. You lose access to creativity. The blinders go on. It's all about driving outcome, to reestablishing yourself in a non-resistant place where there's an openness, there's clarity, there's creativity arising naturally. So that's the state from which we want to perform, which is why the first part of the work is really dealing with the internal state.
You just pinged off like 10 billion things in my brain, but I'm curious if you've worked with anyone, because I know you work with organizations, which I think is phenomenal, and I think that would be so incredible to see an organization make a shift like this throughout their entire company.
Yeah.
I'm curious, there's certain industries, and maybe that's unfair, maybe it's all industries, but I know that there's certain industries that are definitely operating from a place of pain or resistance or fear. There's a lot of structural fear.
Yeah.
I saw it a lot in healthcare.
Yes.
Was a big one, right?
Yeah.
So
And they incentivize. A lot of them incentivize this culture.
Yeah.
maybe without meaning to, I don't know, or meaning to, but I'm curious, so if you're doing this work, and let's say it's not organization-wide, because something like healthcare is huge, and so I hope that this happens and that does happen, but, let's just say someone says, okay, I want to be my best high performer, and they do this kind of work. How, when you open yourself up, how do you also protect yourself in that capacity, because I think you're exactly right. A leader who can be vulnerable and who can open, it's very like Brene Brown too, can identify in a different way, can also be resilient in a different way, and can empathize in a different way with the people that they're leading, or their coworkers or what have you. But how do you protect that vulnerability when there is maybe chaos and pain and issues around? Do you ever work with people who are in those situations where they can't change that? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Go
all
off.
the time. All the time. Yeah, I mean, this is where, and, you know, a lot of my volunteer work has always been in the DEI space, where it's like there are structures we can't change, and working to change the systemic structures is definitely part of my passion. And also my concern primarily is working with the person's individual, equipping them at a personal performance level so that they are free, that they are not in the grip of their own survival mode. And so if someone comes at them with, you know, something that is challenging, they have a choice about how they respond to that. So that's the first thing. Obviously, it's so fun when a team has a shared language, and they know they can say, "Yeah, you know, I'm caught, so I got to go take 5 minutes," or whatever. Like, they have the language and the tools and the system for, you know, being on the same page around how to interact, how to perform, how to deal with certain things, how to even be in meetings together, and so there's that piece around, it's about the personal performance piece first. Now, what I've seen is, and this is what I get really excited about, and people ask me this question, okay, so I'm not in survival mode, but what about everybody else around me who's in survival mode? Which is kind of what you're asking, and it's what we see in organizations, but it's also what people see in their personal lives. And the thing there, and this is what I've seen time and time again, is that when you're not coming from fear or pain, now all of a sudden you have a shot at the dynamic around you shifting as well, because you're not speaking pain to pain. You actually have a shot at the other person reacting differently to you when you're disarmed and in non-resistance. And that means that your impact, your capacity to impact around you is far greater when you're not coming from the survival pattern, when you're not coming from that survival-based, pain-based place. So that's why for me it's one person at a time, and then we go from there. And yeah, it does take time. It takes, you know, we do it in 12 weeks. We see the shift consistently in 12 weeks, which is why I'm looking to find a behavioral. I was telling you about, we want to measure the data around what we're seeing, because we're seeing it consistently across the board, that in 12 sessions with the help of this particular framework. And the simplicity, we need simplicity right now. Like, that's the other thing about the system I think that's been so powerful for people, is that we need simplicity in a world that's already so complex, and in a world in which everybody's drowning. Like, the whole thing that we're trying to solve for is overwhelm, right? So the tools need to be simple. They need to be accessible. It needs to be that anyone can find themselves in it and apply it directly.
Yeah. I love that. I'm just like, it's speaking to all of the things that I feel like I need to deal with, but today is not the day to deal with them. So we did speak to, we had a wonderful conversation with Denise Williams. If you haven't listened to that podcast, listen to that as well. But a lot of it is about really deeply listening, and I think we've lost the ability to do that for ourselves and to ourselves. You know, I am you know, very much someone who has spent most of their life doing and doing and doing, and really feeding off other people's perception of me, of who I am to them.
The
which
validation
is
that comes with it.
The perception of being to other people was more important than actually being. And I think that's the thing, that the piece that I really want for people who are listening to understand or find their own meaning from today is to understand some things that we can do when we feel like we're sinking. Like, what are some things, we joke about it a lot, where during the podcast and the things that we've done together, I feel like we're trying to clog holes. What is it? We're trying to clog the holes while the ship is sinking?
Yes.
So how do you...
It's like, do you bail out the water or do you plug the holes?
Yeah.
I think it was like, which one do you do first?
Right.
So what are some of the key things that, without going into the whole framework, like what are some key things that you could help someone today with that they could go, I feel like I'm sinking right now. What can I do right now?
Yeah. I mean, I personally haven't done any breath work, but taking 3 deep breaths is probably a great thing.
Yes.
But it's the capacity, developing the capacity to take a beat between the stimulus and the response, right? Obviously. So that's more on the being level, but maybe this is where I can just go a little bit into the groundwork system, because I think the practical tools and the kind of everyday tools of what you're asking, which is like, I have all this stuff coming at me and I can't possibly know where to start. And then on top of that, I think one of the struggles that we're seeing is people have all these great ideas they're trying to execute on, they're trying to do all these projects and take care of tasks and all this stuff, but then they don't have a sense of accomplishment because they can't bring things to a state of completion. Things don't get complete, right? And so
it's
then
like more of a me. We were talking about Christina, so
Switching time.
but that's where it can feel like you're plugging the holes and you're trying to save the boat, and it's all happening at once, and then nothing gets completed. So part of the system is this idea, and I think again this is where the cultivation of peace of mind comes from, is that we take everything that's coming at us and we actually bring it to a state of completion. And part of that state of completion means some things don't get done.
Shock.
or not done like perfectly.
That too. So actually perfection is a survival response. So it would be part of the survival pattern that we would track.
Interesting.
Is the
And
need
I've
to do
gotten
things
better.
perfectly.
You have gotten so much better.
That's
When
great.
Christina
I'm so
and I,
proud of you.
but Christina's like the opposite, and she's a driver, and so it's been a really, really good balancing act for me to
Beautiful.
learn from.
She keeps you going and iterating quickly.
She forces me to put things out that I'm like,
Nice. That's great.
And Raquel on the other
teamwork.
side, yeah, exactly. On the other side, encourages me to actually pay attention
you pay attention.
To details.
Well, to details,
Yeah,
because I'm
yeah.
the person that people call in crisis
Right.
to solve the problem
Right.
and get people out of the burning house kind of thing.
Right.
In a
Well, I
metaphorical,
slow
very
things
metaphorical
down
way.
sometimes. I'm like, let's
yes.
just, instead of, focusing on how we're going to get 15 podcast episodes out, let's build a system.
Right.
Yeah.
But you love systems.
I do love systems.
You just don't love building systems.
No,
Right.
no, do
Well,
not.
it's kind of handy to just have one handed to you. But this is the thing about systems, right? Is that with people who are so creative, and especially in the world of ADHD now, and all these neurodivergent, things coming out, and people kind of identifying with these and seeing them. I say we because I was diagnosed with ADHD in college. We need structure more than anybody needs it. Like we thrive. I think all adults. We know kids thrive in structure. Like from behavioral sciences, you would know this. Like all humans, I think, thrive in structure. So I do think we need systems and structures for managing the hyperactivity that we're in, and just the overwhelming sheer amount of like, I should be really good on LinkedIn, and I should do this thing over here, and I should execute that project, and I should go to the gym. No, not just once, but twice a day, and I should cook all my meals, and I should be really good at what I do, and I should also have a perfect marriage, and whatever, right? Like it's so intense right now, and we wonder why we're seeing such wild mental health crises. Like we need structure to thrive in this chaotic world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we keep getting you off track, but tell us about some of your structures.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
So no, that's good. So we were talking about taking ideas and parking them, and that really being. So I would say start a parked list, like start a list in your note-taking app wherever you track things. Call it parked, and start putting things in there. Start making peace with what you're not doing. Take great ideas. Someone told me a couple years ago, they're like, you should go on TikTok. You'd be amazing on TikTok. You'd go viral on TikTok. I'm like, great idea. Not doing it. I'm doing other things.
I know someone else who said that.
Also me. Yes. Not doing the
Not
TikTok.
doing it.
We are, though.
Right? Okay.
We are this
Yeah.
season.
No,
she's wrong. You guys can look us up on TikTok at Bombshell Brunches.
Raquel will be there.
But it'll be good because you'll decide to not do other things. Possibly.
We'll take this offline.
Take this one offline. I like it.
This one's heading out of the rainbow bucket
should we circle
list.
back to this? Yeah, we'll circle back to this one. Yeah.
And so actually, speaking of circling back, one of the important things in order for me to do complete work with this idea, really take this idea to completion, which is it's having a parked list is one thing, but then you need a system for coming back to it, which means, so second thing is, so first thing is you create the parked list. Second thing is, I'm going to ask you to put a 30-minute check review parked once a month in your calendar. And then come back to it. Yeah. Because otherwise it's going to be a bunch of stuff in the background weighing you down that you forgot. It's like a closet full of stuff that you didn't deal with. Like, that's not what we want. We want consciousnch around it.
Sounds like my husband. He's like, I'll tell him something. He's like, she hasn't raised it in a few days. I think she forgot. I'm like, no. No.
It's there.
It's coming back around. Don't worry.
Nice.
We're going back to our parked list.
Nice. Exactly.
In T-minus 5 days.
Nice. Yeah. And I know couples who have parked lists together. Like, it's so helpful, like, as a family.
Yes.
And I get teams to do that, like, very quick tools. I'm like, no, okay, we talked about 20 things you're not going to execute on because I know your priorities. We're creating a shared park list for the team. So powerful. The relief that comes from that, huge.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the complete system. I'm giving you a very tiny component of the system that I teach. So as you can imagine, the level of completion that we bring to each thing that you're dealing with. And, you know, it's really, again, it's about being able to prioritize and be proactive versus reacting to just life and just thrashing around. You know, not helpful.
I love the thrashing around. Okay, so there was something that you guys talked about clearing your inbox. And I know we had a call out to all listeners to take a moment, pull out your phones. Unless you're driving, do not do that if you're driving. And check how many unread emails
In
you
which
have.
inbox?
That's a great question.
In which
Let's
inbox?
do a sum of all.
All inboxes.
Yeah.
What have you got, Christina?
Do you want to know the unreads?
Yeah. Is it worse than mine?
10,176.
Oh, it is worse than mine.
Wow.
I win.
Oh my goodness. I love this game. So, I mean, I don't actually love this game.
I do love this game.
Mine was over 5,000, and I thought I was gonna be the worst. So.
Funnily enough, one of my favorite humans, Mike, who is a clarity architect, 2 years ago went through my inboxes and did an inbox clear for me.
Oh, wow. Nice.
This is after that.
Oh, dear.
And he went
That's
through
a good
all
friend.
Oh yeah, he's great.
That's a good
and
friend.
And he went through and was like, let's figure out all the things that you're actually not going to do anything with.
Yes.
And at the
Beautiful.
beginning, I was like, no, I'm going to need that. And he was like, it was like a closet clear out. And he looked at me and he went, and we were on Zoom, I think, at the time. And he was like, have you actioned that in the last 6 months? No, but I'm going to. Okay. When do you think you're going to do that? And I was like, well, I'm good. And he's like, would you reasonably say that you would do it in the next 6 months, considering there's 16,000 other ones to go through next?
So, yeah, he was smashing your wishful thinking.
He was
I love it.
absolutely, yeah.
I love this man already.
Well, then he just went straight into, he was like, I'm going to put this in a folder called Later.
Nice.
Oh, see, you already had a
Yeah. I
rainbow
but
bucket
you know
list.
what? I didn't learn, did I?
Ours is good though.
A rainbow bucket was good.
Ours is shiny.
Yeah, but the Later is not a rainbow bucket.
Right.
That's not filled with
It's
dreams.
still in, yeah.
It's not filled
dreams, darn it.
with happy, joyous
Right.
ideas
It's
that
things
could
you have
happen.
to do.
It's
Yeah.
85,000 like ASOS newsletters that I haven't unsubscribed
Banana Republic
Right.
is sending you another
the
newsletter.
amount of things that I get would just want my 10% off of my first purchase from.
Right.
Probably a parking ticket somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Anyway, but we talked about the inbox.
Yes.
We did. And I think that was the thing that when I was describing you as my new friend that I had collected this year, the thing that everyone really identified with was, I said, she knows how to help you clear your inbox.
I know, it's
and
funny.
Everyone is like, oh my gosh, bring her to me now.
Yeah, it's funny how the email gets people. I know.
Right.
It's such a source of distress for so many of us. I can definitely just spell it out right now.
Please do.
Okay. So first of all, email is part of work, which means it needs dedicated time in the calendar. You can't be hoping to do email in the background of life. It's relationship management. Tasks are coming through there. Yeah. It takes time and dedication to actually deal with email.
It's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
So no false thinking, no false hopes. We got to get time in the calendar. If you're a high performance person, could be you need 45-minute blocks a day. I mean, I don't know what you need, but you got to get in reality about that.
When you have 10,000 emails, you need a bit more time.
Well, you're gonna need like a purge.
I need Mike. I need Mike back to come and purge it again.
Yeah. Or you just sit down for a weekend, put some movies on in the background, and just archive everything. Go page by page, scan. So I do I'm getting very technical here, but select all for the page. Scan the page.
I do
Oh,
that.
good,
I do that
perfect.
too.
Untick and then archive.
Yes, I do the same.
Great. So
Well, I
then-
don't archive, I just delete.
I go straight
so deleting is great. So the reason I say archive is because people are so afraid of losing information. So just remove that barrier. Just archive your stuff. Don't worry about it. Then you can always search inbox if ever you're worried about losing something. But it often prevents people from getting things out of the inbox.
Yeah.
And in Groundwork, we try to get as close to inbox zero as possible. Not as a goal to achieve because then it's done because you'll get it to zero and then 10 new emails will come in within 5 minutes. But just this idea that you're actually what's left in the inbox is only what's incomplete. If it's complete, it should not be there.
Yeah.
So question on that, sorry. End of day.
Yep.
Right? Someone's, let's say they're doing consulting work. So clients could have fires that they need to put out. A lot of people, their goals are attributed to client relations or stakeholder relations, like what you're talking about. There's a panic there about clearing out the inbox because it could be an emergency for a client. How do you handle situations like that? So end of day, because you're talking about work hours, which I'm like, you're onto something here. There's a gold star in there somewhere.
Yes.
How do you get people to kind of let go of that panic
Sense of urgency,
or anxiety around that?
That's exactly where the survival pattern work comes in. This is exactly why it's back to being. Because what we relate to as urgent in our society is absolutely crazy making.
Right?
It's absolutely crazy
Oh my gosh,
making.
we could go off on that.
Yeah, there's a whole thing there for sure. But what is truly urgent is a question that I would have to ask there. That would be an inquiry with the person. What is truly urgent? Or is this somehow tied into a need to do things perfectly, a fear of disappointing others, validation, whatever's driving in the background of that? Obviously, it could be expectations that are set by the employer, which in that case, it's a completely different thing. And then we would create structures for that agreement. But for most of us, it's a personal reactivity response that we're having that's, causing us trouble and anxiety for sure. And then, so at the end of the day, when you're in inbox and you're trying to kind of clean, so what we do is in the Groundwork system, there's something called the daily review. We sit down at the end of the day and we bring everything that's come at us in the day, we process it, and we take each of those things and we bring them to a state of completion. So what I say is if you're in inbox, if the item takes 2 minutes or less, you take care of the item. Otherwise, if it needs time to actually address it, or there's a document you have to review before you can respond properly, then that means that needs allocated time to get that piece done. So you would snooze it to the next allocated block that you have for actually processing email. Or if it's a big chunk of work, it would get its own calendar event.
I love that. I love that because that's, especially within my realm of work, that's something I often have to do. And I'll feel pressure to get something out quickly.
Right.
But then I don't feel super comfortable with, did I have enough time with this item to make sure that it really is at the level it needs to be before it goes to the next person.
Yes.
Right.
And I think allocating that time block is really key. And that might mean, I guess, pushing something else if it's really urgent? Is that what you would kind of recommend doing?
Well, this is where we get into the calendar. So the system is calendar centric by nature, and there's a lot of context around the calendar. Yeah,
this is her love language.
yeah.
I
One after my own heart.
love a good calendar.
Oh, me too. I know.
Well, that's what we said when we went for
Oh
coffee.
yeah, you
and
sent me a
Amrita-
calendar invite. I remember now. Oh yes, she sent me a calendar invite, and I was over the moon.
And we're like, now we're friends forever.
Yes, I remember that. That's good. Yeah, so there's a lot of context around the calendar, but for sure, this is where again we would look at like, are you scheduling from survival mode, or are you scheduling from clarity, from peace of mind, from being in touch with your priorities? There's a lot of context we do in Groundwork around what are your focus areas? What are your areas of focus and priorities 3 months at a time? Because another survival response is going too far into the future, trying to project like the 1-year plan or the 5-year strategy plan. I'm like, I barely know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, so most of us are just constantly in a survival state trying to make these decisions. And so really the structure is also paired with, is this a survival based thing that you're scheduling, or is this like an actual thing that's connected to your priorities? And then of course with the calendar, over structuring the calendar is a survival response. Over engineering the calendar is a survival response. So it means that when we're planning in the planning phase of the calendar, we're actually looking for where's the open white space in the calendar to make sure that you can actually respond to life as it's arising. And something like that is something unplanned that's arising. So in an ideal groundwork schedule, you'd already have the room for that. You'd actually have the capacity and be equipped to respond to that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Are there color-coded?
No color coding.
Stop it.
That
All
one
my
kills-
calendars
that
are
kills- yes.
color-coded.
That kills folks. There's a good reason for it, though.
Why? I love my colors.
I know. A lot of people don't want to give them up, but when they do, they never go back.
Why?
Yeah,
But I
they
can
never
see it
go
at
back.
a like I can just look and have a glance and know what's like personal, what's workout, what's work, what's this. No? You don't
So
like it? Okay.
the
Tell me why.
reason, I think you'll appreciate this because there's some
Okay.
good thinking around it. The reason is that when people, so the most difficult muscle to build is the muscle of self-accountability. It's so much easier to be accountable to other people. Like the meetings that you have in the calendar with other folks, so much easier to show up for them. But do you actually show up for the lunch break that you blocked in the calendar?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good.
And my workouts.
Okay, great. So good for you.
That's my way of
amazing.
doing it because if I don't put it in there,
Yes, you have
then
to.
other people take it over.
Yes.
But if I put it in there, I'm like, you have to book around it. Even
Yeah.
my husband and my son have to book
That's smart.
Her son, who is 1 year old,
Yeah.
needs to book in.
Please book
Dedicated
around the
time.
workout.
I love that.
You will currently be in daycare so that I can work out.
Beautiful. That's awesome. That's good. So you have a really strong accountability muscle. But what happens for most people is that when they're color coding, they're unintentionally or unconsciously putting a hierarchy value on what they're committing themselves to.
Oh.
And in groundwork,
Interesting.
if you give your word to something and you put it in the calendar, it does not matter what it is. You gave your word. Now, obviously, there's room to like flex and flow with that and go, okay, I said I was going to go to the gym, but it's not happening now. It's happening later. But there's a consciousness around, what I say matters. And most importantly, especially as it comes to the things that we need to do for ourselves, because it's always the first thing to go in the calendar. The first thing to get deleted in the calendar are the promises that you make to yourself.
On that note, I think we have to go and reassess our calendars. Amrita, if there is one thing an action item that you could leave our listeners with,
Yeah.
one thing that people can do at the end of this, I call them circuit breakers, something to kind of say, I've listened to this amazing thing, watch this podcast, I'm going to make a change. What would be one thing you'd encourage someone to go away and do in 10 minutes or less, I like to say?
I love that. Can I put 2 in?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So first
Choose
thing,
one.
Okay.
You don't have to do both.
Yeah, exactly. So first thing I would say is at the doing level in terms of a system, I would start the part list like we talked about. And I would just do a simple dump. Like I would just, so open up notes or wherever you're tracking tasks,
Yeah.
create a parked list, and then dump in there anything that you've got weighing you down in the background. It's just roaming around your head. Like, I should do this. I should get those pants hemmed. I should go get, a new gardening box or whatever. I know I'm making stuff up. I should try that new recipe. I should get back to so-and-so. All the shoulds, get those out, park them. Get them out of your head. They're not serving you. And then create an event in the calendar, a recurring event that says review parked list once a month. Do it at a time where you're not going to be overwhelmed. So it should be like a time that you're going to be relaxed. You can actually consciously touch in with those items. And then you just see, are they still parked, or is there something I'm ready to action? Probably most of it's going to stay parked for a long time. I've had stuff in my parked list for years. Like my dream of becoming a master chef, great idea, not happening. It's parked.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe in 10 years. But yeah, so that would be the first thing. And then otherwise, I would say at the level of being, if you're interested in mapping your stress response pattern and actually understanding how you survive difficult situations, we have a free thing on our website at groundwork.xyz where you can go sign up, and we just take you through how to actually start tracking your survival pattern.
Amazing.
And that
Okay,
will really be
Christina and I
helpful.
are going to do that after this podcast.
Nice.
And we will share ours at the launch of
Yeah.
this podcast.
Which-
How about that?
Beautiful.
I'm
Great.
committing us, and Christina will send a calendar invite.
Yes.
I'll
Yes.
send you the calendar invite with no color.
This is not a
None.
rainbow bucket list item.
There's no more rainbows to this bucket. It's
Blocked
just-
in.
Nice.
blocked in.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Amrita. That
Oh,
was
my pleasure.
so wonderful. It's always such a joy to have such great, deep, and useful, and meaningful, and practical conversation with you.
Nice.
And,
Thank you.
and so many laughs. And I look forward to us all taking groundwork. .xyz. So yeah, go visit Groundwork.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the other side of the overwhelm.
There you go. I love that. That's a good wish for everyone. Yeah. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for showing up, Bombshells. We'd like to thank our brilliant media and production team for their incredible work on each episode. We look so shiny because of them. As for you, my darlings, head to our website bombshellbrunches.com to sign up to the mailing list for future events and deals, connect with us on socials, dig into resources, and leave us little love notes. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.